All right, I think we're ready to get started. Ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming to the Darkwing Duck reunion panel. My name is Aaron Sparrow. I wrote the Darkwing Duck comic books for Boom Studios and for Joe Books. And it is my pleasure to introduce our amazing panel to you. This is, setting up this beautiful painting here, is Darkwing Duck creator Tad Stones. Right next to him is Darkwing Duck himself, the terror that flaps in the night, Jim Cummings. Making his first appearance at any one of the panels that I have moderated, Launchpad McQuack, Terry McGovern.
This is the first opportunity I've had to thank Tad for employing me.
You're welcome.
And at the end of the table,
later.
Better late than never. And at the end of the table, we have the Harlequin of hate himself, Quackerjack, Michael Bell.
Can I have a child's chair?
What time is it?
A child's chair that can sit me up higher. I'm very short-waisted now that I'm in my 80s. Okay, I guess I can't see beyond this first row, so you're all just going to have to raise your hand when you get to ask questions.
There you go.
And when we do take questions from the audience, just so you guys know, I will repeat the question so that we can make sure that everybody can hear it. And let's get started. Okay, first, I guess my...
And no recording. Unless you're recording.
Okay, so my first question that I'm going to throw out here is for Jim. Jim, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Darkwing was one of the first voices, if not the first voice, where you weren't doing a voice match that you got to come in and create for yourself.
Well, probably not because I was on Dumbo Circus, but almost. Because I had like about 100 there, but he was in the top 100. No, he's in the top one. I mean, if you really, I mean, as far as the guys I love, I mean, he's one of my all-time favorites, without hands down. You know, there's no question. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and people say, well, how do you do it? And well, you have people like Tad Stone saying, quit doing it wrong, and then Darkwing's dad. And then Darkwing's mom would be Jenny McSwain, and she'd say, do it right. And so then those are sage.
Jenny played the mother?
No, well, I always said she was, because she just was a voice director.
All right.
And you know, you kind of molded. He wasn't the biggest guy in the world, so he didn't have to sound, you know, this. And he wasn't the smallest guy, but he was the most sarcastic, insecure, and you know, kind of pompous and daring. And inside, he was a good guy. He cared. He had a lot of heart, and you know, you mold all that together, and you get the terror that flaps in the night. That's what happens. So there you have it.
I have to say that more than any other time, I mean, I just had a convention in Russia where obviously it's a whole different voice, but Jim was part of the creation of Darkwing in a unique way, in that Jeannie McSwain did give him feedback when he did something that she felt was unique. She would remind him, oh no, don't do it that way. I mean, he'd do a reaction. She'd say, do that flattened sound like you did. And some of those things, yep, you know, that stuff all became trademarks, because early on she fed it back to Jim. So she would help build that character. So that was part of the creation of the Duck, who then, you know, went around the world and other people doing the voices, but they always had that personality to match. The only other person who I think was so close to the character was Chrissy Cavanaugh, but we didn't write to her. I mean, after we started hearing Jim, we could write to his Darkwing, but Chrissy, it was more like, you can write the straightest line in the world, and she is going to find some bizarre way to say it as Gosselin, and she was fantastic, so she built the character that way.
Yeah, God bless her. God bless her, right.
Terry, obviously you were on DuckTales before Darkwing, playing Launchpad.
Yeah.
When
Okay, wait a minute. This is a test. This is a test. Are you ready for the test? DuckTales. Okay, you passed.
Yeah. There's this thing on YouTube, a lot of stuff about DuckTales. But one of them is a young group of, it's a jazz singer, a girl and her friends, and they do a jazz version. It's like, DuckTales. Woo. And have you seen it? It's unbelievable. Yeah. Great theme. Thank you very much.
So when you came in to audition for Launchpad, do you remember what kind of like direction were you given? Were you just given a picture of the character? Like what went into you creating that voice?
This is a day in the life that you're never going to forget. I mean, for me, a place, I don't know if it's still there. I've been gone so long. Bob Lloyd. Voicecaster. Still there. And I was new in town, and I lived in West LA, and you had to drive all the way over to Burbank in traffic. And I was sent by my agent to audition for something. And I get there, and it was an awful day. It was raining, and it took 2 hours to go 12 miles. And I finally get there, not in the best of mood, and I get my script, and it says, "Try them, you'll like them," or something like that. Just really short, really inane, nothing. And I said, "That's it, okay." And as I'm leaving, I see this stack, and it says Disney. So I walk over, and if you're going to become an actor, one of the things you want to develop is the skill to read upside down. It's really important, because then you walk by a script like you're not really interested and go, "Wait a minute." And that's what happened, because I saw the character Launchpad, and it said, "We're looking for a cross between John Ratzenberger and Jack Burns." And I knew them. I mean, I knew who they were. I was back there at the place where you picked me up. And I said, "I can do this." And I called Bob Colvin, and my agent, and I said, "I have to do this." He said, "Terry, you're new in town. Once you get to know people, you'll get put on the list." I said, "No, you don't understand. I can do this." Right out the door. It's perfect. It's perfect for me. "Terry, would you?" I said, "Look, Bob, either you get me on the list, or I'll hold my breath. I'll die right here on the lawn." And I annoyed him so much, he called Bob Lloyd, who was nice enough to say, "Okay, we'll read him." And you guys liked it.
The rest is mystery.
The rest is mystery.
Jim Magon is in the room, who is one of the there he is.
Where?
Way over
Jim
there.
Magon.
Oh, yeah!
And Jim was one of the key people in creating DuckTales. And I remember I guess they didn't put on the copy. The other element was Kurt Russell in Big Trouble in Little China. There's a scene where he
That was
comes into
one of
our-
Launchpad's descriptions?
Yeah, because when he came into the room, in one of the big climaxes, with a machine gun, fires it in the air and immediately gets knocked out by the falling plaster. And Jim was saying, "That's Launchpad."
That's Launchpad, yeah. Yeah, the doofus, well, he's not doofus.
Dumb man of action.
Doofus. Anyway, yeah, that's what happened, and it was just the greatest thing in the world. And the only thing I'll say about it, this sounds a little self-aggrandizing, but it's really important to know that you got to speak up for yourself. You really have to. And if you know that you're not only in the ballpark, but you know you can nail it, then don't shy away from it. Call somebody, say, "I can do this," and maybe they'll let you. Maybe they won't, but in my case, I was lucky. That's it.
I thought you were going to tell a story if you just picked up the script and pretended you were somebody else on the list.
That would have been a good way to go.
I can do it, Jim Cummings. Sure. Yeah.
Well, I didn't even know Jim. I don't even know. Jim was brand new. He was newer than I don't think he even gotten to LA yet. And of course, when he came in, he just nailed everything. Right. That's why I quit. I couldn't handle the competition. Likely story.
All right, my next question is for Michael. Michael, you have the distinction of being my favorite villain on the show, and that is in no small part to your performance as Quackerjack.
Can I call Dan Castellaneta and tell him that? Can I call Dan and tell him that?
Yes. Call Dan. Actually, Dan Castellaneta. I know you're not watching. He's my favorite villain. So you're also the voice of Duke on G.I. Joe, as well as a plethora of other characters. One of my favorite lines from Duke, probably written by Buzz Dixon, who's also here, was, "I'm gonna kick the mustard out of that crazy hot dog."
I said that the other evening to my wife.
Would you do me the honor of saying that line, but as Quackerjack?
Yeah, I'm gonna kick the mustard out of that crazy hot dog.
Totally cracking them up.
It's very funny because because I think I'm the oldest one on the panel here.
No, I'm far older.
I'm
I just
gonna cut you in
moisturize a
half
lot.
and count the rings. Actually, when they doled out the voices, and Jenny McSwain, who was directing, was a wonderful director, said, "Okay, you realize what you don't know is when you get a script and the characters are lined up, the first person who is in the script gets to do their voice, their character first. And Dan Castellaneta was before me, and he did that Kirk Douglas kind of thing where he did that, that character's that. That's what I had planned to do. So I had to think very fast when the script came around to me. Where am I going to go with that? If that's what I planned to do.
Can you imagine somebody gets up and does the voice?
Just what I was going to do. And so I wound up going, making him big and kind of jokery. And I thought, well, okay, judging by that, I have nothing else. I just have to imitate Jim. I have to just improvise as we go along. And thankfully, that was accepted, and it was great fun because what you have to understand is we did so much stuff, but every now and then you get a script like Darkwing that really is rich and full, that you can riff, that you can play with, that is the writing, and then you get this lovely director, and you get the physicality of it, and you get the drawings, the artwork. It all came together. It was a perfect storm. It really was, in a good way for all of us.
Smooth as a grimy sandwich.
It was, exactly.
Can I say something really quick about Michael? When I first moved to California, I had a job at a radio station in San Francisco, and I remember sitting in this little booth, and you're playing music, talking to people, doing the news, and then commercials. And the very first time I remember hearing this commercial, I stopped what I was doing. You shut up, what is this? What is this? And it was.
Oh, you got it.
You can tell he's a voice actor because he's used to having the microphone hanging in front of him. There's absolutely no mic technique.
The rectal
Let's
mic.
have the rectal mic here for him.
No, but what was the root beer you did?
Mug old fashioned.
Not old fashioned. And he played the animal trainer. Can you do like a line of that?
This is your gorilla training lesson for today. Today we're going to learn to train a gorilla, and I do hold the gorilla, grab him by the back of the neck, and you hold him around the waist and you kiss him in the mouth. Unless you'd rather have a glass of mug old-fashioned root beer.
And everybody had to shut up in my studio. I said, shut up, what is this? And then I finally found out who you were, and then I got to meet you and know you. But how about doing your the biggest, your big one?
Butter. Okay. What's interesting is I won an award that year, which was some major award or something, and it said you won this award for best announcer of the year, but you shared it with Orson Welles and some other really great names, and I can imagine them, and Robert Morley and Max von Sydow. You all won together, wow. And I can imagine them calling each other and saying, "Who the frig is Michael Bell?"
But then they'd say, "Oh, he's the parquet guy." I know him. You know what was it?
Orson probably would have known.
We know a remote farm in Lincolnshire. Every July, peas grow there.
We're not even on a can of peas yet, what? What do you say? I wouldn't direct any living actor in Shakespeare like this.
This is like one of those outtakes that goes around, in our community, and that one was one of the biggest ones forever. If ever you run into Maurice LaMarche, you cannot stop him from doing that. Hello, Mauro, how are you? Yes, always. I'm always past that, you see. So, yes.
And Morris did a brilliant thing because he took Orson Welles' voice and actually that show, help me. Picking the Brain. Yeah, Picking the Brain was actually based on the outtakes. That tape was so popular with the animators.
They did one. We did one that was just that. It was the outtakes. It was called Yes Always. If ever you see Animaniacs and you don't know what the heck is going on, it's because it was basically the whole outtake. And I always wish that they could have done one with William Shatner. Because he had a few too. It was amazing. It was, what was it? No, you say sabotage. I say sabotage. You say sabotage. Oh, yes, Bill, whatever.
Did you ever see him on, I think it was the Ed Sullivan Show, he did Rocket Man?
Ooh, you guys see that?
Yes.
It's so wonderful.
If you're ever worried about embarrassing yourself, watch that performance.
What was incredibly fun for us is, and it's very rare today just for technical reasons, but we always tried to have all the actors in the room at the same time.
Right.
So they could play off of each other and all of that. And I've only got one, and I put it online a while ago, one badly lit videotape, but it was the rehearsal for Just Us Justice Ducks. So I had all the villains, all the heroes and all that, so it's a rehearsal. But I really miss that. I mean, they get brilliant stuff today, and even in Hercules, when we were doing that, you just couldn't get people in the room together. But having these guys not just do your script like a radio show, but while you're discussing takes, it's the ad-libs and the outtakes and the jokes and the way they try to amuse themselves. Frank Welker would sometimes just play an elevator. You know, just go,
Y'all know who Welker is?
Oh, you all know Welker. Yeah, Welker, very, very funny. I was doing a show with Welker, and in it for Hanna-Barbera, and in it I had to talk underwater, and it was. Oh, yeah. I said, okay, I'll give this a shot, and I had a glass of water, and I put it in my mouth, and I started to drink it, and it's going. Okay, I can do this. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, damn, and I was choking, and finally Gordon Hunt, the director, rest his soul, marvelous director, said, okay, Frank, why don't you do your character, who also talks underwater, first, and then Mike will sort of gather up and figure out what he's going to do, and Frank went, so I said, Frank, why didn't you show me how to do that? And he said, because I was having so much fun watching you drown.
He used to sit behind me. This is, I guess, DuckTales, with Andrea Romano, another great director. And he would sit behind me, and like two school kids. And he knew this would dissolve me every time. And we get in place. We had this, like Tab was saying, we had the music stand and the little green light, everything. Guests would come, other actors, would come and say, this is so civilized. Is this the way you guys work? But Welker would sit behind me, and he'd wait for just the right moment. And he did Gregory Peck. I can't do it, but I'll try. Oh, yes. And he would sit behind me and go, Terry? And I was on the floor. That's all he had to do. Yeah. Terry? Yeah. And Andrea would always say, I'm going to separate you two. I can't have you. Frank Welker.
Oh, yeah.
So Terry,
George, too.
Terry, I heard a rumor. I don't know if this is true. I heard that you are the voice of the stormtrooper that in Star Wars, that the main stormtrooper, the most famous stormtrooper line.
Yeah, I'm even peddling that at the table. As a matter of fact.
Is there a chance we could get you to do the line?
Should I? He says, who remembers? Real quick story. I did 2 films working at...
So no, I guess not.
THX 1138 I worked on, and I worked on American Graffiti. And George's buddy Alsop, his assistant, called and said,
license plate in American
THX 1138. That's right. That's right. No,
You were really convincing.
his first film was remarkable. And anyway, she said, "Can you get some voice actors?" I live nearby, and she said, "We need some voice actors over here tonight." And I said, "Okay." So I called a couple of buddies, and we showed up at this little screening room on top of the hill there. And we said, "Hey, George," and he was just George, this little guy, you know. I mean, "Hey, George, how you doing, pal?" He wasn't God yet. And we walked in, and we're milling around looking at the screening room. Very nice. "What do you want us to do?" And we got scripts, and everybody got scripts put in front of them. And we looked at them going, "Stop them, there they go. Blast them."
Yeah.
And these, wait, what is this? And the only thing he would show us was the Death Star exploding. And that was it. Never spoke. I mean, George absolutely never talks.
You guys are in that.
Yeah, you guys are in that.
No context. Just here's a big ball in space exploding.
Anyway, Ben Burt, the great sound man, had his inaugura, and he went around to all 5 of us, and we all recorded the same lines, just randomly, you know? And 2 years later, I'm in Westwood, sitting with a friend, and it comes up on the screen. I almost wet my pants.
You know why?
Why?
Because you didn't get any residuals. I know, because I did Star Wars, and I didn't get any residuals.
What did you do in Star
This
Wars?
is not an idle concern of Michael Bell's. No, I think
Just stays with me.
yes.
Yeah, I did Commander Willard.
Oh, okay.
He had me dubbed that because he brought me in. I didn't know who he was that much, and again, it was George. Okay, great, because we did this all the time. You came in, you dubbed, you did Walla, you know, you just would do it. You were working. It was a work day, and he said, "I'm going to show you the dailies to give you an idea." And I see this kid with a flashlight, and Harrison Ford, I didn't know, with a flashlight, and they're doing all this kind of, and they're doing, and of course, there was none of that was in it. It was just this flashlight. I said, "What the hell is that?" And he says, "Well, we have stuff we fill in afterwards." I said, "Oh, okay." And then I see another scene, and then I see one with Alec Guinness, and I said, "Whoa, you have Alec Guinness! Wow, that's great." But I noticed everybody was English except for those two characters. And then finally he said, "I want you to dub this character, and then dub this character, and then whatever." And I wound up doing it. And I said, "Well, why did you have me do that?" And he said, "Because they're all English." I said, "Well, you shot this in Britain. What did you expect?" And he said, "Well, you know, just if you will." And I said, "Great." And I filled it in. And then years later, I'm with some friends on Hollywood Boulevard, and we were out on to Grauman's Chinese, and they said, "We want to go see Star Wars." And I said, "Nah." We said, "Nah, it's nothing." And they said, "No, let's all go." I said, "Nah." And I said, they said, "Oh, come on." So I went, and we all went, and we got online. And they said, "You're in this?" I said, "Yeah, I'm somewhere in here." And the whole film, well, I was wrapped. I mean, obviously, like everybody else, it was like, "Oh my God, that was fantastic." And they said, "What part did you play?" I said, "Who cares? Oh my God, that was great." Years later, it's this enormous success, and I go, "I wonder what my contract is." What the heck is that?
contract?
What contract? I mean, I had it, except it was 10 years later, 11 years later, and everything went to the shredders and gone, and I could. So, you know, I could probably bought this building.
Before I get accused of turning this into a Star Wars panel, Michael, would you be willing to give us Quackerjack's famous catchphrase?
It's party time!
Jim, do you have any you know, "I am the" that you've never gotten on film that? Okay, wait. Do you have any that you?
It's like improv. Okay, insects. Go.
Yeah.
Oh wait.
I am the bug that splatters across the windshield of crime. I am the floaty that will never flush, no matter how hard you do it, in the toilet bowl of crime.
I'm so
Actually,
shocked they never
I
used
made
that
those up. Those aren't actually real. Those are not.
You could make them. You just go on
Yeah,
and on.
it was funny about 9 shows in. I used to make up a few, and I mean they would come up with amazing ones because the writers were so good. But one of my favorite things was Jess Arnell points this out, because about 7 or 8 shows in, You know, it would be always, I am the terror that flaps in the night. Then there would be one in the middle, but it would always be, I am Darkwing Duck. So I'm reading it, it says, I am the terror that flaps in the night. It doesn't matter what I write here, Jim's gonna make something else up anyway. I am Darkwing Duck. So that was kind of fun.
It occurs to me that we've got two of the reasons here why Darkwing does that. In that Darkwing used to say, I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the scourge that pecks at your nightmare.
Scourge, the peck.
Yeah, Scourge.
And he was going to say that every single time. It was like the shadow or something. It was every single time. Like the third.
Winged Scourge.
That's it. The winged scourge. Then about the third episode in, or third script, not necessarily episode. It was Launchpad had to pretend to be Darkwing Duck. And he could never get the line right. And so he said, I am the road salt that rusts the underside of your car.
Wait. I think we need to hear that before you finish the story.
Launchpad.
I think
As
Launchpad needs to say.
I am the road salt that corrodes the under.
Yes!
Yes, that's it.
See?
See?
See? He live.
Anyway,
Up is a place you must never mess.
and this is, again, my temperament on Darkwing, obviously not only anti-continuity, it was just like, don't run away from a brilliant gag. And I told all the writers, that's too funny to waste on one episode. We're giving that to Darkwing. We pulled every script that was in work already, and we gave those type of lines to Darkwing. So that's how he got one of his most memorable traits.
I am the paper jam and the copier of crime.
I'm gonna. Would you guys like to ask some questions? Yeah. All right. If you guys want to form a line right here, we can take some audience questions here. Just keep it brief, and we'll keep it moving
Say
along.
your name and your favorite dessert.
Now wait a minute. Technically, he's not forming a line if it's just one
If
guy.
it's just one guy. You're a one-man line. Come on.
Oh, my name is Nicholas. I like chocolate cake strawberry.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. You can sit down.
That'll be enough.
This question is exclusively for Jim, but this is for everybody else. Have you played any of the really approved game? In addition to Kingdom Hearts as well.
No, I'm an Amish caveman. Basically, no, I'm not a big gamer, but I'm glad you are. And keep up the good work. Please stay sweet as honey, won't you? Thank you. Thanks, buddy. Thank you, pal.
Yeah, I used to play video games, and once they added on the third button and special moves, I went, I could do this, or I could continue writing animation.
Have a life, yeah.
All right, come on up, sir.
How are you?
What's your name?
Tyler.
Tyler, what's your question?
Well, I was just wondering if
What's your favorite dessert?
ice cream. Ice cream sandwiches.
Wrong. Sorry.
Do you know if Darkwing Duck is going to be coming to Disney Plus?
I believe the original show definitely is, because if you look real fast when they show these are the shows that are going to be on Disney, he doesn't get an early spot, but unless you go into a seizure of some sort, when they're really flipping through them fast, you'll actually see him there. So
Follow-up question: will Michael get residuals?
he'll get as many residuals as Jim Megan and I got for writing all that animation.
Oh. Which is bupkis. Yeah.
Yeah, what kind of?
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Natalie.
Natalie, what's your question?
My question is, will Darkwing Duck ever attack Lord Bachman from OKKOSB Hero? It'll be a fist.
I hope not. I hope not.
Yeah.
We don't have that kind of money for a crossover.
That's okay.
In the lawsuit.
Yeah, Cartoon Network they just wouldn't understand.
I think I saw something online that you were bringing Darkwing Duck back and you were animating it yourself. You were doing all the
Oh
voices.
yes. Yes, my hand was. Yes.
Come on up, sir. What's your name and what's your question?
It's Mohammed.
And what is your favorite dessert?
Mint chocolate.
Okay, all right.
In my day, when I worked at Baskin Robbins, we called it 31 flavors, and it was chocolate mint.
Baskin Robbins always finds out, bro.
So my question is for Mr. Cummings.
So out of all the characters that you've voice acted throughout your career, which ones are your favorite and which ones are you most proud of?
Who are your favorite children? Go.
Yeah, I know. Pooh, Tigger, Darkwing, Ray from Princess and the Frog, and Hondo Ohnaka from Star Wars Clone Wars.
You know what?
I've never answered that question before.
let's actually go down the line. Same question.
Yeah.
Favorite characters to voice?
Oh, well, check. I mean,
The body of this guy's work is, what a body. Nice body.
Just point to Jim and say the same ones as him.
Launchpad.
No. And same question, Michael?
Obviously, this lovely Quackerjack and Chaz from Rugrats. And Grandpa Boris, the Jewish grandpa from Rugrats.
I just found out today that you were the voice of Raziel from Soul Reaver, which blew my mind.
That was the game, yeah, Raziel from Soul Reaver. Yeah.
Such a good game.
So the margarine doesn't make the cut? Gee.
Yeah, no, the parquet voice?
Not anymore, no.
Hi, what's your name?
Janelle.
And Janelle, Jim's going to ask what's your favorite dessert?
I have two actually.
Overachiever.
One is strawberry crepes and edible cookie dough.
Oh, all right. Do you have any?
Cookie dough?
Yeah.
Right now? And what's your question?
Okay, well, first and foremost, it has been a great honor of standing in front of all of you. You have been... Thank you. And my question to all of you is, did you ever think that Darkwing Duck was even going to be this huge, like even after so many years?
we knew.
I was slaving away at Disney, and it was Jim saying, "No, Dad, it's going to be big. It's going to be big." No, it's not. I'm just barely hanging on, Jim.
So yeah, we're glad you think so.
Now, back in the day, you didn't know for a long time how the show was received until you started getting letters, right?
Well, we knew it was being well accepted because when we were in the middle of our only season, really, the first 65, ABC said, we like the show so much, we want 13 episodes, which allowed us to do an extra 13. And then they wanted a second season. That's why Darkwing has 91 episodes. So we knew it was popular. We liked it, especially depending on what studio animated it. You're laughing out loud at it. And then the ratings did okay. But frankly, it wasn't until I was retired, and that coincided to my first invitation to a convention, that I finally got to hear from the audience, because I started in features, and Ron Clemens, I used to share an office with, he could just go to the movies and hear the reactions. We just had these abstract ratings, but
I think it's important to point out that unlike many of the shows today and some of the shows that followed, this show success was predicated upon the audience's approval and not on a doll. Not on a character doll, and it wasn't, the doll was selling, let's continue the show. This was because of the show itself, and that's really something to be said.
Before the interwebs.
What's your name?
My name is Ricardo.
Favorite dessert?
Come
on, Ricardo, you got a lot of time to think about this. Come on.
Fondue.
Fondue? Okay, well, to each their own. What's your question?
My question is, has Pete ever met Launchpad?
Oh.
I'm sure they'd get along just fine. He's right there.
I think we met at a bar over in North Hollywood, if I'm not mistaken. Was that you? Well, I did have a dress on, but... Oh, come on.
Not for long!
You know me well, you devil.
I'm wrecked, I can't.
Quick thing I just
killed Sparrow over here.
Real quick thing about Mikey. We've already established that Michael Bell is the voice of Parquet Butter. Now, what you don't know is that he did it for decades.
Yeah.
Is it still on? I mean, you still doing that campaign?
No, what happened was they found someone that did me better.
Finally!
Yes, and so then I had to audition for my own career. They said, "No, you're wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
You're wrong."
This
Fred."
actually happens.
Yes, it
One
happens to
time,
all of
Casey
us.
Kasem showed up at an audition, and the guy in the booth said, his 20th audition, he says, we're looking for a Casey Kasem type. And Casey said, I am Casey Kasem. And the guy froze, and he said, well, thank you anyway, Mr. Kasem. And wouldn't listen. But the thing with Mikey was, every, I guess, year or 2 years or something, his contract allegedly was coming up. Every male voice actor from Los Angeles to New York
And a couple of women.
and a couple of women are sitting at home going, butter,
Butter.
butter. And then their families walk in and say, what's the matter with you? Butter. Okay. And of course, none of us got it, but somebody finally,
Yeah, somebody in New York guy, which is okay. You know, that's pretty standard, and I don't think any of us really hold a harbor against anybody that does come up and get it. It's okay. That's the business. Right now, they just ordered 26 Rugrats.
Jim and I harbor.
They just ordered 26 Rugrats, and we've been waiting on the hook to see what was going to happen, whether I'd wind up doing jazz again, etc. And they said they got some young celebrities to play those characters. And
Well,
I
that's
said,
what they did with Duck.
so I said, let me ask you a question. I said, who's going to play Grandpa Boris, the Jewish grandpa? And they said, we're not sure yet. And I suggested LeBron James.
So, Michael, you go into auditions and they go, we want you, well, not you specifically, but someone like you.
Yeah, that's a too
Oh, that's rough. All right, man, what's your
You
name?
need a career like Rob Paulson, who does one voice on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then they bring him back to do a different turtle. So that's what you want. That's the gold standard.
So yeah, new Darkwing show. You'll be Megavolt. You'll be Liquidator. You'll be.
I won't be in it.
Dominique, what's your favorite dessert?
Napoleon ice cream.
All right, and what's your question, sir?
Question is for Mr. Tad. I'm going back to the episode, season 2 of Exterminator. What's the idea of bringing it back towards Bulba as a cyborg?
Probably because you had the Steerminator name, right?
Yeah, basically a lot of those were, in fact, again, I was just in Russia and they said, why did you name, because Taras Bulba is a real guy, was a real guy, and it's like, why did you have a Russian guy? I said, because it was a pun on the word Taras was Taurus, and I saw a movie when I was 4 at a drive-in with Tony
George
Curtis.
Takeiris.
Yeah.
George Takeiris and Yul Brenner. That's right.
And I had this vague memory, and kind of with Steerminator, Terminator, it's just when you're sitting in a room staring at a blank wall, trying to come up with ideas, you just look for any association, whatever gets you going.
Wasn't it Horst Buchholz? Wasn't he in Taurus Bulba? Was it?
No, it's George Takeiris and
Oh,
Yul
okay.
Brenner, and it killed George Takeiris' career.
All right, we're down to under 10 minutes, so we're going to do lightning round here. What's your name, sir?
Strawberry shortcake. I know.
You smell delightful.
David. Sorry. Really quick, the question I had for everyone, it was if you had a line that got censored by Disney that they wouldn't let you do, could you tell me, or just something in general?
You trying to get me a C&D, David? I'm trying to run a respectable show here.
I'll be all day.
One little bit, one line that we wanted to do in Aladdin, and every once in a while we would have meetings with Disney lawyers or different parts of the company just so you understand things, and we had huge meetings in detail about what's parody, what's satire, what you can legally do. Because meanwhile, over at Tiny Toons Animaniacs, they were doing all sorts of Disney, pastiches and that. Some of them written by guys who had worked with us at Disney.
I was in a show that mocked me.
Anyway, the line, but what would happen is, so we would follow the rules, and at the end of the day, the lawyers would just say no anyway, because they just felt like, if I say no, I don't get in trouble. If I say yes and somebody has an objection, I get in trouble. And so it was very frustrating because it was just a quick line by Dan Castellaneta as the genie, where I forget what surrounding stuff, but he suddenly hunched up his shoulders, his ears got really tall, the background went red, I'm Batman. And and they wouldn't let us do it. I said, but look at this, and they just didn't want to hear about it.
I can't believe you guys got that guy, Megavolt saying that guy's always breaking my bulbs. I can't believe you guys got that one.
Wow. You know, I had one that it was like the second season, and ABC called up, and they probably called Tad or somebody else there. And now, when he pulls out that gun, and he's getting ready to shoot it, what does he say?
Suck gas, evildoer.
And they go, please tell Jim to hit the G. Because
we did get a couple of letters from moms who didn't hear the G. Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. All right, sir. What's your name, favorite dessert, and your question?
Sure. I'm Will Hazza. My favorite dessert is Dippin' Dots. They're from the future. And this is a voice acting question. When you're handed a piece of copy, what are the biggest factors that go into how you decide to portray that character, finding their voice? Do you ever actually read the little breakdown, or do you just look at the picture and go for it?
Well, according to Michael, it's like just making sure that Frank doesn't go first, or that Dan doesn't go first, right?
Wait a minute, read the breakdown? They give you a whole history. I mean, his mother, the parentage, the father came from Sweden. Who cares? If I can see a drawing, possibly that helps. Obviously, it's just the basic temperament of the character, and then you pull it out of your bag because you plagiarize. Don't shade your eyes. That's why God made your eyes.
That's the answer.
All right, go. Hi, my name is Joseph. My favorite dessert is cookies and cream ice cream. And
Excellent.
Thank you. And I have one question. Did you guys have fun working on the show?
Yes.
I was in my blue period at the time. And so I had Jim to buoy me up, but no, it was not pleasant. Of course, it was the greatest time of my life.
Time, yeah, absolutely, yeah. There's only one show like this.
Oh, yeah.
There really is. I mean,
Yeah, it is. And I love your voice work, Michael Bell, go way back since the 80s.
yes, yes.
And I forget the person I was going to hit on. Go ahead.
And I also like Major Blood, and here's my thing. Major Blood, prepare for Operation Overkill, destroy the G.I. Joe.
Well, that's a wrap for you, Michael.
Go for it, sir.
Way back since the 80s. Banana cream pie with Betty Crocker pie crust sticks.
Oh! Yes!
My question is for all of you, including Tad. Films, television, classic actors who influence you to this day.
Where's the list? Films?
Classic films, TV actors that influence you to this day in your performances. I mean, just pick one.
Canteen Floss. Gosh, Lawrence Harvey. I'm kidding.
There's a lot of Googling going on right
How
now.
about Jackie? Yeah, Jackie Gleason. I don't know.
Ava
Jackie
Gardner.
Gleason. Yeah, obviously. Frank Sinatra. Sammy, babe. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, you mentioned Jackie Gleason, and one of my Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks. Absolutely, the two. If you youngsters haven't heard the 2,000-year-old man, you're not aware of the original blueprint for American comedy. It came along about the middle of the 20th century. From that moment on, everything was derivative of Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks. Thank you.
And for me, it was Cary Grant. Yeah, I thought he was just the quintessential, and I would watch him and listen to what he was doing, and I didn't think anybody ever matched him. They still haven't.
Thank you, sir. Your name?
Julie.
Favorite dessert?
Cookie dough ice cream.
All right, and what's your question?
For everyone, who would you say were the characters that worked off each other the best, in your opinion?
Characters in our show?
Yes, characters in Darkwing Duck.
Launch and Darkwing.
Another huge fan favorite is Megavolt and Quackerjack. Whenever they teamed those two.
Absolutely.
I always wanted to see Steelbeak with more villains. That's just me. Fair enough.
So does she.
Ammonia Pie. Thank you so much. All right, sir. Our last question.
Okay.
What's your name?
Majid, and my favorite dessert is a bean pie. Mostly because I have a friend. I have a dad. My dad's friend makes the pie, and it shows.
Oh, yeah. A bean pie?
All right.
Bean pie.
All right, and what's your question?
You have to wear a bow tie to eat it, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Anyways, I'm actually curious about something. I have a character who I'm actually curious with how he would sound like if he had a voice, and this is particularly for Jim, for you. Is it okay?
You know what Jim?
Sure.
You know what Jim's day rate is, though, right?
Yeah. I'm just curious. So,
How deep
I have
are
a
those
character
pockets?
here. He's basically
Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll give you a brief description. He's a cab driver.
Snappy?
Yeah, his name is Snappy. And he's like he is an overly excited type of character. He drives a taxi, but he's like super reckless and crazy, but he wants to do the best of his job.
Okay, well, let's
Gotcha.
see. Let's
Gotcha.
Let him create.
I would play him as a mime. Color me crazy, but it's just crazy enough to work.
Thank you.
He'd be signing his little guts out. Look, he's signing now. He's saying, get out of here. No, I don't know. I guess I would do it sort of like this. Sort of like a bad impression of a bad impression.
All right, that is all the time we have. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
For those of you who are on the Twitter machines, you can follow Tad at Tad Stones. You can follow Jim at Jim Cummings Acme. Michael, are you on? Michael, you're Michael Bell VO.
MichaelBellVoices.com.
Yes, that's your website. And Terry, are you on?
Terry
Twitter?
McDuck Instagram.
On Instagram, yes, Terry McDuck. And then before we go, is there any charitable organizations that you guys work with that you want to put the word out for?
I raise funds for Angel Hands for the homeless and their pets. HANZ. Angel Hands, HANZ, for the homeless and their pets in Los Angeles.
Excellent. Check that out. I know that Tad does work with Autism Speaks.
Yeah, and then at Christmas time, I already did my auction, but if you look up Combat Christmas on GoFundMe, you'll see there, we put on a Christmas show for homeless families. We basically feed them, give them supplies, and they get to interact with all sorts of cosplayers and the like. Awesome.
If you check out Jim's social media, he...
Yep, Alzheimer's Association, yeah. Mm-hmm. Let's get rid of that, shall we?
Yeah, James, for your birthday, you had donations to help Alzheimer's.
All right. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
Salvation Army.